All right, so good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I'm Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So, for those who don't know, Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Today, we're really excited again to be joined by the Turtle Hospital. I'll introduce them in just a second. But first, we'll go through our classes. So, right now, we have 5 classes from across North America. One just joined us, so we'll find out who they are in a second. But we've got Miss Perez, Miss Fraser, the whole gang in Anaheim, California.
Hi!
Hola! We've got Miss Beggarly's grade 3 from St. Paul, Minnesota. We've got Miss Rose's grade 7s from Easton in Connecticut. We like turtles too. I love how much lower pitched that was with the older kids. That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna try this. We've got Mrs. Sazama, grade 4 class in Hutchinson, Kansas. Oh, I messed it up twice. I'm sorry. All right, we'll say that. Okay, and we just had 2 classes join us. Now, with your classes, I won't be able to demute your mic. I'm trying to figure out who joined us, but we've got 2 other classes. Don't know who they are yet. We'll figure it out when we get there. For now, we will introduce the Turtle Hospital. So the Turtle Hospital is located in Marathon, Florida. They've joined us for a bevy of hangouts, and what they do is rescue, rehabilitate, and re-release injured sea turtles. One of the coolest things ever, one of the coolest jobs ever. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, who's going to take us on a tour of the whole place. Thank you so much for joining us once again, Teresa.
Hi, guys. So we're going to start here with Judy. So Judy's about a 150-pound loggerhead sea turtle. And so the loggerheads are one of the more common species that we get here. And they get their name because they have a very large head. And part of the reason why they have such a large head is that they have that nice large beak because they're carnivores. In the wild, they like to eat crab and lobster, anything with a hard shell. And so Judy came in back at the beginning of February. A little bit more than a month ago, she was found entangled in a crab trap. Because these turtles like to eat the crabs, so they kind of like to investigate the crab traps. But sometimes they get entangled in the trap line. And so, with entanglement injuries, it all depends on how long they've been entangled and how tightly they've been entangled as to how much damage is done. Unfortunately for Judy, she had been entangled for so long that it had cut off the circulation to her left rear flipper. So once that happens, the flipper starts to die. So we had to amputate her left rear flipper. So looking at her back end here, she's got her right rear flipper, but just one back there, not the other one. And so she has to heal. Right now we're doing wound care, changing the dressing, because just like with people, you have to make sure it stays nice and clean. So we have to do that out of the water. And she's such a big turtle, she's very strong, so it takes 3 people to hold her. And so she's almost done. She just has a few more minutes, and then she'll be able to go back in her little tank here. She'll be able to go back in water. She'll feel a lot better. But she's doing very, very good. She has just a couple months. Ooh, looks like they're done. She has just a couple months, long enough for that wound to heal, and then she'll be able to be released. She'll always look a little bit funny, like that flipper's never going to grow back, but she will be able to be released. Think of a 3-legged dog. They may look a bit funny, but they can still do everything that a normal turtle does. So that'll take just a few months, as long as she doesn't develop an infection. But that's why we clean it out. But at the moment, she's not real happy. She's got a lot of pent-up energy, because she doesn't always like it when we have to clean out her wound. Just like people, it's not always very comfortable. But we have to keep it nice and clean. We have to make sure she doesn't develop an infection. And so the loggerheads are one of the more common species that we get. We got another one here. This is Dusenberry. Dusenberry came in about 2.5 months ago. She was found floating. Now she's not doing very good. And so when a turtle is sick, doesn't matter how or why they're sick, if they're sick, they float. Even when there's nothing else physically wrong on the outside, we know that when they're floating, that something is wrong. So that's when we know to bring them in. And we do x-rays. Dusenberry had an impaction. So eating some stuff she wasn't supposed to, so she got constipated and gassy. I've been giving her medications to help her poop. So now she's no longer floating. Finally pooped out all of that. So now she'll be able to be released in hopefully just about another week. We just kind of have to make sure that this is going to continue because it's only been 2 days. It hasn't been that long. But when they first come in, when they have those impactions, they do float kind of lopsided or sideways. Because Izzy has an impaction, but she's only been here for a month. So still kind of sick. So we've got Velcro attached to her shell. So that way when she is a little bit sideways, we can add the foam blocks. That's what those two little white squares are. Those are floaties. So that way we're trying to level her out a little bit. And the Velcro is nice because as the blockage moves through their system, they start floating different directions because their intestines loop around just like ours do. But typically these turtles takes about 2 to 3 months for them to pass all of that blockage. But it does depend on the turtle. And so Dusenberry took just about 2 months. Izzy might take a little bit longer. We have to wait and see. We have to wait till she passes all of it. But some of these turtles, they pass it a lot quicker. Our newest turtle is Coco. Coco came in 2 weeks ago, was found floating. So we brought him in. He did have a pretty massive impaction. We thought it was going to take him forever to pass it. Then just a few days ago, we came in the morning, and the entire bottom of his tank was covered in bits of shells and bits of plastic. So he had passed all of it in one go. When we gathered it all up, it was just about 2 pounds. It was massive, which kind of made sense why he didn't feel so good, because if you had to poop out 2 pounds of shells, you wouldn't be feeling too good either. But now he's doing so much better, but he is a little bit underweight. He's only about 190 pounds, but he should weigh a little bit closer to like 240, 250. So we still have to keep him for a little while, help fatten him up a little bit. But at the same time, we also have to build his strength up. He gets tired very easily. Think about people. When people get sick, you get very weak and tired and you sleep a lot. And if you've been sick for a long time, it takes you a while to kind of build your endurance back up. Same thing for the turtles. And so even though he is a little bit of a larger turtle, we're keeping him in the smaller tank. So this way he can't swim around too much, he can't tire himself out. And if he is a little bit tired that day, he only has a half a tank of water. So he doesn't have to struggle to come up to the surface to breathe. And then as he gets stronger, then we'll start transferring him to some of the larger tanks. And so Coco's just about adult size, so probably about 20 to 30 years old. And we know that he's a boy because he has a very long tail. Because once they hit adulthood, if they're a boy, they get that long tail. It gets up to about 13 inches in length. Whereas if they're a girl, the tail stays really short, doesn't go past the end of their shell. But when the turtles are younger, when they're juveniles, you can't tell just by looking at them if they're a boy or a girl. They look identical from the outside. So sometimes we do end up with turtles with the wrong names. It's like we have a Kevin who's a girl and April who's a boy. Turtles, they don't care. The names are really just for us. But these loggerheads are one of the more common species that we get. The other common species that we get are the green sea turtles, like Hope here. So even though they're called green turtles, they're not actually green, they're brown, but they're herbivores. So in the wild, they eat lots of seagrass and algae. Here, they get romaine lettuce, kale, green peppers, green stuff. And they eat so much green stuff that their fat, their insides, turn green. So it's kind of like you are what you eat. Just be glad it doesn't work that way for us. But Hope came into us, was actually a month ago today. She came in February 15th. But she has tumors. And so the green sea turtles have a virus. It's called fibropapilloma, FP for short, and it causes tumors to grow on the soft tissues. So neck, flippers, eyes, which makes it very hard for these turtles to see or to swim. And so these turtles have to come in, and we do surgery. We remove those tumors. And then once they're tumor-free for a little while, then they're able to be released. But we can only do surgery in increments of about an hour. So a lot of times it takes them multiple surgeries to get them tumor-free. So she's already had one surgery, but we'll still need a few more before she's able to be tumor-free. But she's doing much better. But one of the great things about us is that we are in the Florida Keys. So it's a string of islands, about 100 miles long, down at the very south end of Florida. So that means that we're surrounded by ocean. And it's typically how we get our turtles, is from the boaters and the fishermen, the people that are out there on the water. So they see a turtle that doesn't look quite right, so they call us. And then one of our rehab staff is always on call, so no matter when we get that turtle call, we have an ambulance, we'll go pick the turtle up. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but on the dock there, right past the ladder, there is an iguana. We have lots and lots of iguanas down here. And then kind of as a thank you for the boaters and the fishermen to rescue the turtle, they get to name the turtle. That's why some of our turtles have some very, very strange names. Sometimes they make sense. So like this is Timmy. Timmy came into tumors, but Timmy's kind of tiny. He's only 8 pounds. So kind of give you an example as to size. Like, he's just a little guy. He's probably only about like 3 to 4 years old. So pretty young. And average lifespan for a sea turtle is about 70 to 100 years.
You're welcome.
And eventually these green sea turtles will get to be just about 500 pounds, shelling just about 5 feet long. So he's got a lot of growing to do. But some of our turtles do have other problems. So like this is Kevin. Kevin was bit by a shark. So sharks do have to eat too. Fortunately, sharks do eat turtle. But they don't always get the entire turtle. But sea turtles cannot pull their heads and their flippers inside their shell like a box turtle can. So their heads and their flippers are always out. So sometimes a shark just gets some flippers. So turtles like Judy, the first turtle we saw that's only missing 1 flipper, she still has the other 3. She can learn how to adapt. She can be released. But Kevin here, Kevin was bit by that shark. She's missing both front flippers. So she's not going to be very fast. The chances of her being released are very, very low. But even if she does need to stay, we might be able to give her prosthetic flippers. But we have to wait till she's completely healed, and then we'll test her out in some deeper water and make that final determination then. But she's currently just playing around a little bit right now. She's got those PVC pipes in her tanks. Those are toys. So in the wild, they've got rocks and ledges and reefs, things that they can hide under or sleep under. Here, they get PVC pipe, because they do like to be able to scratch their shell. And it kind of depends on the turtle as to how much they like to do it. Let's see if Eugene is awake. Eugene is not awake. Eugene's taking a nap. But Eugene came in with tumors. He's got lots and lots of tumors. But they don't have the same set schedules like we do. It's not like sun is awake, or sun is up, they're awake, sun goes down, they go to sleep. So they just kind of take cat naps throughout the day whenever they're tired. And when they are sleeping, they can hold their breath up to about 5 hours. They're all just taking naps. That's okay. But when they are sick, they do have a tendency to sleep just a little bit more. Just like with people, when you get sick, you get very weak and tired and sleep a lot. Same thing for the turtles. Ooh, Randall's waking up. So Randall, just like Hope, came in with those tumors. His are a little bit bigger, but same thing, has already had one surgery, but will still need more surgeries to get him tumor free. But it's one of those things that we'd rather kind of go slow and steady rather than try to go too fast and cause harm. So typically these turtles end up being here between a year to a year and a half. So they're here for just a little while longer. But that's okay. We're going to keep them however long it takes to get them better. And sea turtles are pretty cool. All of their knowledge is instinctive. So they're born knowing everything they ever need to know, which is why we can keep them in rehab for such a long time, because they never forget how to survive on their own in the wild. And we can actually raise these turtles in captivity and still release them, because they don't have a mom or a dad to teach them what to do. So like this little guy, this is Poseidon. He's about a 7-month-old loggerhead, so only the size of my hand, so not very big. And so nesting season is May through October, so summer times. And we get hatchlings here every summer. We get them ones that don't quite make it to the ocean by themselves. So sometimes they get stuck at the bottom of their nest, or they'll get distracted by light. They walk towards land instead of towards the water. So they're not sick, they're just weak and exhausted. So they come to us about a month to 2 months, long enough to build their strength back up, and then we let them go. But when we can, we'll keep 1 or 2 of them as kind of a head start program. So that way, we're going to keep Poseidon for the next 2 years, give him a chance to get a lot bigger, a lot healthier, a lot stronger. So that way, when he does get released, he'll have a much better chance of survival, because he'll be a lot bigger. Not as many things will want to eat him, because within about 2 years, he'll be the size of like a large dinner plate. He'll be about 20 pounds. At this point, he's still itty-bitty. But when they're first born, they're even smaller. Newborn hatchling's only about 2 to 3 inches long, because sea turtle eggs look like ping pong balls. They're white and they're round. They're just a little bit bigger than ping pong balls. And sea turtle eggs don't get hard like a chicken egg. They're kind of like a tough, leathery feeling. So he'll be with us. We'll get to watch him grow up. But because all of their knowledge is instinctive, he'll be fine when he gets released. He won't have any problems adapting to the wild. So a lot of these guys are the patients. They're the ones that came in because they were sick. So we're getting them better, and then once they are better, then they get to be released. But we do have some turtles that are now completely healthy. They just can't survive on their own anymore in the wild. So they get to hang out in here in our big pool. These are our permanent residents, so the non-releasable turtles. Most of them have what we call bubble butt syndrome, which is what happens when they get hit by a boat, and the force of that boat strike causes air to get trapped underneath their shell and nerve damage. So a lot of these guys float. That's how you know that they have bubble butt. But floating in the wild is not normal, so you cannot release a floating turtle. So while they're here, we attach lead weight to the outside of their shell. So a lot of these guys have little gray circles on their butts. Those are weights. So that way, at least here, they can go down to the bottom and go to sleep. But eventually, those weights fall off, so then they're back to floating again. And once we release a sea turtle, they're not going to come back for a checkup. So we just kind of have to keep them. But that's okay. Here, they have a nice, big, more natural pool. So they just get to hang out. And let's see, our largest turtle is Bowie. Bowie's about 300 pounds, so pretty good size. Whereas a lot of like our smaller bubble butts, like that's Chance. He got his name because he got a second chance on life. And so some of these turtles, well, all of these turtles in the wild would be solitary, because in the wild, they're not going to travel around in groups. So the movie Finding Nemo got that bit wrong. And so when you put them here, and they do have to be all by themselves in a tank while they're getting better, they're okay with that. They're used to being by themselves. And then when we do put the turtles together, like these guys, they don't care. They'll steal food from each other. They'll knock into each other. They're not being mean. They just don't care. Their brains just aren't built that way. Okay. I think it might be time for some questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that awesome tour. All right. So we'll start out and we'll go to the gang in Anaheim. If you guys have a question, come on up.
Hi, my name is.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Destiny, and I wanted to ask how many permanent residents are there?
Currently, we have 17. We have 53 turtles in total. So every year we typically get in about 100 turtles. So 53 is kind of on the high end of average. But we're never going to turn a turtle away. We're always going to have as many as we can, or as many as we do.
Excellent. All right, let's go to Miss Beggarly's class. You guys have a question?
How much?
Yeah, you're good.
How much turtles do you guys have?
Well, we have 53 turtles, ranging in size from Poseidon, the little 7-month-old loggerhead, to Bowie, that 300-pound turtle we just saw. And then every size in between.
Every size in between? Like every pound? You sure?
Pretty close.
Yeah. All right. So we've got the turtle number. Let's go to Miss Rose's class. You guys have a question?
Hi. So I was just wondering, what is the biggest turtle you've ever had?
The biggest turtle we've ever had was Farley. She was a 375-pound green. We got her in about 5 years ago. She was found entangled in a crab trap. So for her, we had to amputate one of her front flippers. Then she was here for a few months, and then she was able to be released.
I have a quick follow-up to that, Teresa. So earlier, right at the beginning, you showed a bunch of people picking up the turtle to clean out the wound. With a 375-pound turtle, how many people did it take to help?
It takes at least 4, but typically 5 people to move a turtle that size. Not all of our tanks have a lift. Like our big pool here, like for Bowie to get her in and out of the big pool here, we do have a lift. We're actually trying to get one of our turtles at the moment. Another one of our entangled turtles, but we have the lift down here, so that way, kind of like a little turtle elevator. So this is how we can get the turtles in and out of our big pool. Because otherwise, like Bowie, she's 300 pounds. You can't lift that from such a low pool. When they're in the individual pools, it is a little bit easier, but it's not exactly easy. But this is Jovanovic. Trying to get her up the lift so that way she can go get her therapy for the day. Jovanovic, another entangled loggerhead. This time of year it is stone crab season and lobster season, so there are lots of traps out there, and the loggerheads are kind of prone to getting entangled. But Jovanovic wasn't so entangled that it had actually cut off the circulation to her flipper. So we didn't have to go straight to the surgery, straight to the amputation option, like for Judy. So her flipper was just very swollen, but it's that right front flipper. So it's still very swollen. So we're trying to give her enough time during the day that she can swim and exercise. So she gets to hang out in here for most of the day. But then still, every day, we take her out for therapy. We're doing physical therapy. And we're also using leeches to help kind of cut down on that swelling, help suck out some of that blood and that fluid that's now just sitting in her flipper.
Outstanding. I love that turtle elevator is now part of the lexicon. That makes my day. Thank you for that.
Well, she's not that big. She's only 120 pounds, but that's still not exactly easy to lift.
Right. Well, we will go, and here's the entire class is waiting in Hutchinson, Kansas to ask a question. So if you guys have a question, go right ahead. Yep, you're good, guys. Anyone?
Do I need to unmute us, or are we good to go?
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
go for it. Okay. Why do you put the words on their shells?
Well, when they're patients, we try to keep their names on their shell, just as an extra safety precaution when they're still getting medications. Just like with people. Like when you go to the hospital, you get a wristband with your name and all of your information on it. So when they're here, they're in the hospital, but they don't have a wrist, so they don't get a wristband. So we just use a little paint pen. We write their name on their shell instead. And it's just an extra precaution. But really, once it comes down to it, once you spend all day, every day with these turtles, you know exactly who they are. You don't need the names on their shell anymore. But that's okay.
Question. All right, so the 5th class that joined us, I now know their identity. It's very exciting. So we've got Mrs. Eggett's class in Asheville, North Carolina. The only thing with your class is you have to demute your own mic. So right at the front, little microphone symbol at the top of your screen, you're good. And then go right ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, the turtles do you have? Wait, no. Do you breed your turtles?
Our green sea turtles?
Do you breed them?
We've got lots of green turtles. Oh, do we breed them?
You breed them, yeah.
No. Sea turtles will always return to the same beach that they were hatched from to lay their eggs. So, like, the only ones that we would have big enough or strong enough to breed would be our permanent residents. But even if we were to give them a nice, pretty fake beach here, they know that it's not their beach, so they won't lay. They're very stubborn animals. And so even though they are an endangered species, and you would think that that would be a great way to increase their population, there's just no way to do it safely.
Excellent. Good question. All right. Let's go back to Anaheim, where you've been waiting the entire time. Like, I love it. Okay.
Hi, my name is Karina, and I was wondering how many turtle lives have you saved since 1986?
Well, in that time, this is our 32nd year, we've released over 1,600 turtles.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
lots and lots of turtles. And like when these turtles get released, they do get tagged. So if they ever do pop up anywhere else throughout the entire world, we know who they are. But we've only ever had 3 come back, which is a good thing. Because that means that they're not hanging around people, they're not getting sick again.
Great question and bonus points for looking up when the Turtle Hospital was founded. Good for you. All right, let's go to Miss Beggerly's class. You guys have a second question. Go right ahead.
What was the smallest turtle you guys ever had?
Well, those would be the hatchlings. Those would be the babies. So I showed you Poseidon. He's about 7 months old. So he's a little bit bigger. He's like the size of my hand. But when they're first born, they're only about 2 to 3 inches long. So they get even smaller.
All right. We'll go back to Miss Rose's class. You guys have a second question. Here you go.
What is the most common cause of injury that is in your rehabilitation center? As in, like, is it usually crab traps or entanglement?
Well, we always have more FP turtles than anything else. So more turtles with the tumors. Part of that kind of has to do with the fact that these FP turtles have to stay a lot longer than everybody else, because it takes them longer to get them tumor-free. That's up at the top. So, like, when they have these tumors, like, it takes them a while to get them tumor-free because you have to do multiple surgeries. And then even once they are tumor-free, then they have to stay. They have to build up an immunity to that virus. So not quite half of our turtles came in due to tumors, but it's estimated that about 50 to 60% of the juvenile green sea turtle population in the Keys has tumors. And that's one of the problems that we're having with the fibropapilloma, is that it is worldwide, but it's in different concentrations worldwide.
One of the things you mentioned in other hangouts with us before is turtles that have many ailments, like Like they have the tumors, and they've been bit by a shark, and they've been hit by a boat all at once, basically. Is there any, I don't know, is that harder to help heal? Does it depend on the turtle?
It is sometimes a little bit harder because there's multiple things to fix. So let's go down, see if Montel is back up at the top, because Montel had everything happen to him. And so just like with people, like if you have the flu and you have a broken arm, it's going to take you longer to heal because your body can only do so much so fast. So if you have just one thing trying to heal, it's a little bit easier. But yeah, Montel has been, he's this guy here. He's been hit by a boat, bit by a shark, entangled, and had tumors. So he's missing half of his right front flipper, all of his left front flipper, his right eye, and his shell is dented there on the left side. So he is not very fast. Montel only has 2.5 flippers and 1 eye, so he cannot be released. But that's okay, and here he doesn't have to be very fast. And sea turtles will typically use their front flippers for propulsion, so that's what makes them go. They use their rear flippers like a rudder, so that's what helps them turn. And so turtles like Kevin, the one that was bit by that shark that only now has 2 flippers, or turtles like Montel, that only has half a front flipper, he now has to use his rear flippers for everything.
All right. Let's go back to the kids that, again, have been waiting the entire time in Hutchinson. So go right ahead, guys.
Can the public visit the turtle hospital?
Yes, we are open to the public. So if you ever find yourself in the Florida Keys, you can come say hi to these guys in person. Some of these turtles will always be here. So like Montel will always be here. And the original Bubble Butt, which we haven't seen him yet, but I'll keep an eye out. And then our patients are always changing. Because like Duesenberry, he's going to be released soon. And then a few months. And then we're always getting new turtles in. And it's really how our hospital is funded. We're a non-profit. So everybody that visits us and all the money that is spent here is what allows us to take care of all of our turtles.
Excellent. That was a pretty short question, and just to avoid you standing, if you want to go right ahead, the boy right after in Hutchinson, go right ahead.
Yeah, finish myself. How many turtles come in at an average each year?
Every year we typically get in about 100. It does kind of depend on the weather. So, like on today, it's a little bit colder for us, at least. High today is only 70, and it's a little bit windier, which means that there's not as many boats out there on the water. So there's not as many people out there to find these turtles. But when we have a really nice, pretty day, and it's nice and flat and calm, there's lots of boats out there. So then that's when we get lots of turtles in. So sometimes we'll get 2 or 3 turtles in one day. But it all depends on the day.
Now, are there seasons where you get more? There seems to be a lot of questions today about when you get turtles and how many turtles you get. Are there, like, is summer bigger? Is winter bigger?
Not really. Down here it stays pretty warm. It gets cold to us, but it stays pretty warm for the turtles and pretty warm compared to the rest of the country. So the water stays really warm all year round. That's why the turtles like Florida. That's why they like the Florida Keys, because sea turtles are reptiles. So they're cold-blooded. They get their body temperature based off of the water temperature. So they don't like it when it gets cold. So yes, like they may go up like the eastern seaboard during the summertime when it is nice and warm. They'll hang out up off the coast of New England. But once it gets to be cold, they're going to move south. Going to move back to where it's warm. So there are turtles down here all year round.
Excellent. Before we go to the next question, I just want to say on behalf of the classes experiencing a nor'easter, and where I am, where it's 32 degrees, cry us a river with 70. Good for you. All right.
Hey, it's cold for us.
Let's go back to Miss Eggett's class. Just come on up and demute your mic, guys, and go for it. If there's several kids with questions too, I know it's harder for you. So there's another kid to the right there, a striped shirt. If you want to bring them up too, we can do a double question if you'd like.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
How many different species of turtles do you have?
We currently have 3 different species. So like the loggerheads and the greens are the most common. And then we do have one Kemp's Ridley. Her name is Bender. She's one of our permanent residents. She's in this pool, but she's kind of shy. She does not always come up to say hi. And there's only 5 different species found around Florida. So the 2 that we do not have, one is the hawksbill sea turtle. They get their name because they have a sharp pointed beak like a bird. And then the leatherbacks. And the leatherbacks are huge. The leatherbacks get to be up to about 2,000 pounds. So they don't like to be in the Florida Keys. It's way too shallow down here for them. They spend most of their lives way offshore, kind of more middle of the ocean. But they will nest on the mainland of Florida, so they are still considered one of Florida's sea turtles.
Excellent. All right. Second question from that class.
Where do the turtles get their tumors? How?
Well, the tumors are caused by water pollution. And we're still not completely sure exactly how, exactly where the virus comes from. We don't know if it comes directly from the water pollution or if it's a more naturally occurring virus that the water pollution just weakens their immune system enough to allow those tumors to grow. We're still trying to figure that out. But it's typically these juvenile greens that get those tumors. And these are the turtles that are in the kind of near shore coastal waters because they hang out in the seagrass beds. And that's where that water pollution, the runoff, is the greatest. Plus, the seagrass are kind of the natural filters for the ocean. So they take in the polluted water, clean it up, and release the cleaner water. And then these turtles come along and eat the polluted seagrass, which then makes them sick. So we know it's linked to water pollution. We're just not completely sure of how.
So if there are any students in the classes that love turtles and want to be a biologist when they grow up, maybe they can find out for us. And we can do hangouts later in the future where we know. All right. Teresa, do you have time for 4 more questions?
Sure.
We're okay. Cool. Well, let's go back to Anaheim. You guys have another question? Go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Derek, and I was wondering.
Yep, you're good to go.
How much? My name is
Wait,
Derek.
what's happening? There we go. Sorry, try that again.
My name is Derek, and I was wondering how much pounds of food do turtles eat a day?
What do the turtles eat?
Is that what you asked? Sorry.
How much?
How much do they eat?
How much do they eat? Well, they eat on average between 1% to 3% of their body weight a day. So the larger the turtle, the more they eat. So right now, we've got 53 turtles. We prep between 55 to like 75 pounds of food every day. So it's a lot of food.
All right, back to Miss Beggerly's class. You guys have another question?
How deep is the pool?
Well, most of our pools are just a few feet deep because these are for the individual tanks for the turtles. When they're sick, they can swim, but not enough to tire themselves out. But our big pool here, the shallow end, it's only about 2 to 3 feet deep, and then it gets deeper the farther down we go. And this pool is tidal. It's connected directly to the ocean through a grate. So at high tide, it's just about 15 feet. So that's one of the great things about this pool is that it is tidal. There's fish that can come in and out. There's even some big fish that came in when they were little. So it gives these permanent residents a chance to be a little bit more natural.
Outstanding. All right. Let's go to Miss Rose's class.
After you release turtles, roughly how far away do they swim before they decide to settle down?
Well, sea turtles don't stay in one area. Like they don't maintain a territory like some animals do. They're just going to kind of flit from one place to another. As long as it's warm and there's food, there's going to be a turtle, or there's a possibility of having a turtle. So you'll find sea turtles in every ocean other than the Arctic oceans. The only time that they ever have to be a certain place is during nesting season. And that's when they return to the same beach that they were hatched from to lay their own eggs. Other than that, we've tracked them for thousands of miles.
Out of curiosity, when you do release them, is there a specific spot you release all the turtles, or do you do it all over the area?
Well, we try to release them close to where they were found. Or if where they're found is not where they're supposed to be, we'll release them where they are supposed to be. So like little Poseidon, like the little babies that we get, most of the time we find them on the beach or stuck in their nest. And once they hatch out of their nest, they don't stay on the beach. So when they're ready to go, we take them offshore. And then everybody else, we kind of put them back along the keys wherever they were found. So sometimes we'll release them right off the beach. Sometimes we'll take them a little bit further offshore and release them off of a boat. Depends on the turtle.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll do one last question. We'll go back to Hutchinson, and if you guys want to end us off, go right ahead.
What do turtles do for physical therapy?
Depends on what sort of physical therapy they need. So like Jovanovic, the one we saw getting pulled out with the flipper entanglement, part of it is just physically moving the flippers, like getting the blood and everything circulating. We can also use laser therapy and just kind of massage, kind of stimulate everything to help it heal.
Excellent, guys. I love the diversity of questions from everyone today. So what we do at the end of every Hangout, guys, is I'm going to demute the microphone of every class. So Miss Perez, Miss Beggarly, Miss Rose, guys, everyone's mic is demuted. If you guys want to join me in saying a big thank you to Teresa. So thank you so much, Teresa. All right. We have several more Hangouts over the month of March. If you guys want to follow up and do more with the Turtle Hospital or learn more, you can go on their website. You can join us for other Google Hangouts with them. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Teresa, for joining us again.
You're welcome.